Autonomous rapid transit in Kuching operating on level 2. Monkeypox should not be compared with COVID contagions, and the largest cannabis plantation in Malaysia was seized. Those are the headlines for tonight. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Muhammad Yusuf, and you're now watching TVS Nightline. Let us begin with our top story. Autonomous driving is no longer a distant vision of the future. Thus, the Autonomous Rapid Transit ART system, to be partially automated, operating in mixed traffic, will be established in the foreseeable future in Kuching.
Level 2 is where there is partial automation, where the vehicle can take control of both the vehicle speed and lane position in limited situations. In this regard, we need to correctly understand the meaning and levels of autonomous in the context of rapid transit system. So based on the Society of Automotive Engineers SAE J3016 standard, I wish to reaffirm that there is no downgrading of the autonomous system.
During his winding-up speech, Lee gunned down the questions from opposition in regards of the abbreviation of ART, on whether it was autonomous or automated, to which Lee noted that the matter was a waste of time and trivial to be discussed in the August House.
The idea to modernize urban public transport system in Sarawak started in 2009, when Yang Amat Berhormat Premier was the then Minister for Housing and Urban Development. In fact, he was already thinking ahead of his time on how to improve and modernize the transport system in Sarawak, especially in Kuching City. Therefore, the allegation by Ali Yang Berhormat Pening that it was a political decision since assuming the office of the Yang Amat Berhormat Premier in 2017 to implement the ART is unfounded and baseless.
The World Health Organization WHO said on Monday, May 23rd, that it expects to identify more cases of monkeypox as it expands surveillance in countries where the disease is not typically found. Monkeypox spreads differently from COVID-19 as it spreads through close interactions.
Some symptoms include a fever, aches, and rashes that will turn into blisters. However, for most people, it clears up within 2 to 4 weeks.
Transmission is really happening from close physical contact, skin-to-skin contact. So it's quite different than COVID in that sense. So we are looking for people who have rash, so we can help them first and foremost to understand what their risk is. And we should say that most of the people who have been identified so far have had more mild disease, or let's say not severe disease. But anyone they come in contact with needs to be informed so that we can prevent onward spread. And the thing I just want to say here is that this is a containable situation.
Additionally, there is no evidence that the monkeypox virus has mutated. Head of the Smallpox Secretariat part of the WHO Emergencies Program, Rosamond Lewis, said that mutations are typically lower with this virus, although genome sequencing of cases will help inform understanding of the current outbreak.
We can say that this is a DNA virus. It's one of the largest, if not the largest, amongst the largest viruses known. The mutation rate is much lower than for RNA viruses, and so it's a very stable virus. So we don't yet have evidence that there's mutation in the virus itself.
The more than 100 suspected and confirmed cases in the recent outbreak in Europe and North America have not been severe. According to WHO, the outbreaks are atypical as they are occurring in countries where the virus does not regularly circulate. Meanwhile, scientists are seeking to understand the origin of the cases and whether anything about the virus has changed.
A 78-year-old former diplomat and his son have been arrested following the discovery of about 100 ganja trees growing in their house compound in Janda by Pahang. The police raided the house at about 6 p.m. on Saturday and discovered up to 100 plants believed to be ganja trees planted within the property.
It is learned that the man was detained during a raid on Saturday, May 21st, while his 53-year-old son was detained in Shah Alam on Monday, May 23rd. The cannabis plantation is said to be the biggest in the country so far. When contacted, Bukit Aman Narcotic Crime Investigation Department and CID Director, Commissioner Dato Ayub Khan, confirmed the arrest. During the raid at the house on the 8-acre plot of land in Janda Bae, police also found dried plants believed to be cannabis, 2 glass bottles of suspected cannabis oil, coconut oil, and modified bamboo stick believed to be used for cannabis consumption. The suspected cannabis liquid is worth about 250 ringgit per bottle based on the market value. It was believed to be processed in the house to be sold to their contacts. Preliminary investigations of the second suspect, who tested positive for drugs, found that he had been involved in drug activities since 2013, in addition to planting the banned substance in 2015. The former diplomat has been remanded for 7 days from May 22nd, while a remand application against his son will be made today to assist in the investigations under Section 39B of the Dangerous Drugs Act ADB 1952 and Section 6B of the ADB 1952.
Right, Sarawak is making strides in transforming its public transport system with plans in place not only to enhance public transport options, but also to make current ones more sustainable. As the world emerges from the COVID-19 pandemic, the World Bank Group raised the urgent need to reduce the climate impact of transport, or in other words, to decarbonize transport by supporting countries to move towards a green, resilient and inclusive mobility.
Sarawak's Transport Minister Datuk Sri Lee Kim Shin said this is in line with Sarawak government's focus on green energy, namely hydrogen, solar energy and hydropower to tackle climate change. As such, the first step is to know the baseline for greenhouse gas emissions for all sectors, including transport. Lee said this in his winding up speech in the afternoon session of Day 6 of the State Legislative Assembly Dun sitting on Tuesday. Lee highlighted that on the regional level, the Asian Development Bank, under its Strategy 2030, stated that more than 30% of the US $1.7 trillion investment per annum is required to develop Asia into a comprehensive integrated transport system where the priority is to be given to public transport, walkways, cycle paths, and efficient traffic management systems. The expected return will lead to an economic rebound. He said that based on the report entitled The Malaysian Economy in Figures, published in the year 2021 by the Economic Planning Unit Malaysia, the contribution of the transport, storage and communications subsector to the national gross domestic product has decreased from 138 billion ringgit in 2019, or prior to the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic, to 131.3 billion ringgit in 2020. It is forecasted to rebound to 137.5 billion ringgit in 2021.
Air connectivity is one of, if not the most important tool for accessibility into or within Sarawak, which also serves as a key enabler to support the development of Sarawak economic sectors. Thus, the Ministry of Transportation has assured us that improving the aviation industry will remain as their utmost priority, which the Ministry is working closely with authorities and industry players on increasing the number of flight frequencies for the betterment of the people.
The Ministry is monitoring closely the number of flight frequency into and within Sarawak. There must be enough flights to serve the needs of travelers and for the movement of cargoes. My ministry is working closely with the relevant aviation authorities to study the possibility to increase the flight frequency, especially during the festive seasons, and to expand flight coverage to other international destinations within this region.
Lee said to date, the number of approved weekly flights into Sarawak is 619, comprising of 33 international flights and 586 domestic flights. He added that his ministry is also aware of the increasing flight fares and the frequent rescheduling of flights by the airlines, in which he have met with leaders from various airlines, as well as the Federal Minister for Transport to address the issue. Meanwhile, Lee have also announced that all airlines flying into and within Sarawak must utilize the Aero Bridge for the safety and convenience of all passengers, especially the children, elderly, and persons with special needs.
I have written and conveyed to the Chief Officer of the airlines during my discussion with them that all airlines flying into and within Sarawak must use Aero Bridge for the safety and convenience of all passengers, especially the children, elderly, and persons with special needs.
Lee said this is to ensure the safety and convenience of travelers, to ensure an enjoyable and pleasant experience when traveling into and within Sarawak, as this is a part of their strategy to promote Sarawak as the preferred tourism and investment destination in this region. Some of the existing major airports in Sarawak are in dire need of a refurbishment works. Thus, the Ministry of Transport (MOT) had engaged with the relevant authorities, namely Malaysia Airport Holdings Berhad, Civil Aviation Authority Malaysia (CAAM), and the Malaysian Aviation Commission on the upgrade plans. Pardon me, MOT Minister Datuk Sri Lee Kim Shin said that based on the data that was presented, some of the major airports in Sarawak have exceeded their design and build capacity.
The Minister for Transport Malaysia has personally visited some of the airports in Sarawak, especially Mir Airport, to see for himself the actual situation and the proposed improvement and upgrading works that need to be done.
Meanwhile, noting the importance of rural air services in Sarawak, Lee said MOT had also conveyed to the Ministry of Transport Malaysia and the relevant aviation authorities on the need to increase flight frequency, flight capacity, and to extend the runway of these rural airports.
Arising from our engagement with the Ministry of Transport Malaysia, including with Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia, MAVCOM, and Malaysia Airport Berhad, the senior officers have personally visited and inspected some of these airports to look into ways to improve the safety of navigation extension of the runway.
Right, in their early years, children need lots of assistance from adults to manage the considerable risks associated with road use, particularly in detecting the presence of traffic and judging the speed and distance of oncoming traffic. As such, the Sarawak Ministry of Transport is reviving the traffic games in Sarawak, and its Minister Datuk Sri Lee Kim Shin said that by reviving the traffic game, the state could provide opportunities to educate the young, especially children, on road safety.
Speaking in his winding-up speech in the afternoon session of Day 6 of the State Legislative Assembly sitting on Tuesday, his ministry will collaborate with Shell, Petronas, Petros, transport-related companies and non-governmental organizations to initiate and co-organize this event throughout Sarawak. At the same time, he said that his ministry will also coordinate with local authorities to improve their existing traffic gardens so that we can use the facilities to organize traffic games.
As for towns that do not have traffic garden to organize such games, I would like to suggest for the local authorities to identify suitable sites for such purpose.
Meanwhile, Lee also stated that he will collaborate with the Education Department to organize debate, essay writing, and coloring competitions in both secondary and primary schools on topics of interest in urban mobility, road safety, and good driving behavior on the road.
Coming up right after the break, 5 more Adats to be codified and digital technology and practices for school improvement. Right here on TVS Nightline. Stay tuned. Welcome back. A bill on the new Native Courts Ordinance is expected to be tabled in November during the next State Legislative Assembly Dun sitting to transform its native courts. Datuk John Sikithayai, the Minister in the Premier's Department, said the proposed new ordinance will nullify the current Native Courts Ordinance 1992 and the Native Courts Rules 1993. The government, however, requires a comprehensive study first to comply with its directive in determining the current relevance of the court.
The study to transform the Native Court Sarawak was commissioned by the state government in January 2020. It was originally planned to be only 9 months study. Unfortunately, it was not completed as scheduled in October 2020. The delay was inevitable and the main due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
The appointed consultant undertaking the study had submitted the final report of the study in March, in which the outcome and recommendations will soon be presented to the State Cabinet for consideration and approval.
The proposed transformation of Native Court Sarawak would commence in earnest only after the new Native Courts Ordinance had been passed.
In a related matter, Minister in the Premier's Department Datuk John Sikithayai disclosed 5 more Adat or customs to be codified, namely Adat Melanau, Adat Berawan, Adat Kajang, Adat Bagatan and Adat Kiput.
Since its establishment in 1972, the Majlis Adat Estate of Sarawak has codified 7 Adat, namely Adat Iban 1993, Adat Badayuh 1994, Adat Kayan Kenyah 1994, Adat Bisaya 2004, Adat Lun Bawang 2004, Adat Kelabit 2008, and Adat Penan 2011.
To preserve and further promote the various customs of Sarawak, Siki said the state's Adat Istiadat Council has published 23 books in 2020. More books will be published in the future, which will touch on Sarawak's customs and traditional knowledge. With the ever-changing and advancing of technologies, information and communication technologies or ICT is an essential to many, especially the next generation. However, according to the Ministry of Education, Innovation and Talent Development, there are some individuals who are still skeptical of the efforts by the Sarawak government to introduce the use of the Raspberry Pi initiative.
Perhaps they are skeptical because they are not as familiar with the Raspberry Pi as they are with the more common desktop, laptop, tablets, and smartphone devices.
The people should be assured that the Raspberry Pi is not meant to replace PCs or laptops in schools. Rather, it is an alternative for light productivity applications and also functions as an internet in a box in rural areas that lack internet connectivity. The Raspberry Pi is able to act as a learning platform for computing, coding, and to help develop users' problem-solving skills even when there is no internet connection.
In terms of operating systems and software, the Raspberry Pi, which we have supplied, comes ready and preloaded with all necessary operating systems and content. It can also run the Windows operating system, which many of us are familiar with.
Additionally, Saga expressed his understanding of the importance of continuous training for teachers, which he assures his ministry will continue as he has successfully done 2 online webinars during the pandemic. Starting May 14, a 3-year face-to-face training will begin for teachers and students to help further understand the utilization of the Raspberry Pi in their learning and teaching process.
In terms of impact in the long run, as it is with any learning process, this will be measured periodically over time and not instantly. Of course, by then, we expect our students and teachers to be adept with various IT tools and put to good use their applications, be it a normal computer or a Raspberry Pi.
Under the efforts, a total of 9,436 sets of Raspberry Pi computers were purchased by the government and distributed to all 1,265 primary schools and 30 education district offices (PPDS) by the Sarawak Information Systems. According to the Raspberry Pi Foundation, Raspberry Pi is a series of single-board computers and is a cheaper alternative. The foundation was founded by a UK charity that aims to help people worldwide to learn programming skills, do home automation, build hardware projects, and to even use them in industrial applications.
Thank you for staying with us. Now, the number of hand, foot and mouth disease HFMD cases in the country had increased at a worrying rate of 20-fold, with 47,209 cases reported as of May 21st this year, compared to only 2,237 cases in the corresponding period last year.
Health Director General Dr. Noor Hisham Abdullah said 15,548 cases were recorded nationwide in the 20th Epidemiology Week ending May 21st, which is an increase of 106.6% from only 7,526 cases recorded in the previous week. Selangor recorded the largest number of HFMD cases with 13,640, followed by Kuala Lumpur and Putrajaya with 6,206 cases, Perak with 4,099 cases, Kelantan with 3,726 cases, and Sabah with 3,352 cases, while other states reported fewer than 2,500 cases. He said most of the HFMD cases occurred among children below the age of 6, which was evident in 43,736 cases, followed by those aged 7 to 12 and those over the age of 12. Meanwhile, Dr. Noor Hisham said that state health departments and district health offices nationwide had conducted engagement sessions with agencies that supervise the management of nurseries, kindergartens, and preschools since the 17th epidemiological week following the increase in HFMD cases in most states. The engagement sessions emphasize gatekeeping screenings, correct hand-washing practices, disinfection of children's toys, house floors and toilets, proper management of disposable diapers, and use of separate eating and drinking utensils. Additionally, reminding the public, especially parents with small children, not to take their children to places where there is a risk of infections, such as public playgrounds.
Hypertension, a silent killer. Most people with hypertension are unaware of the problem because it may have no warning signs or symptoms. So set your alarm for Sejahtera Asia tomorrow, 7:30 a.m., where they will be joined by health expert Dr. Zaitul Akmal Abdullah Zawawi, and she will be discussing the dangers of hypertension disease right here on TVS, Esther Channel 122 and My Freeview. See the world closer with TVS as we bring you the latest news updates both locally and internationally just a click away by heading onto our website at www.tvstv.my or follow us on our social media platforms. And we have for TVS Nightline, I'm Muhammad Yusuf. Thank you for watching.